track begins with what the album ends, this captivating ode to rebirth, an anthem of surrender to what comes as a natural part of life in Celtic understanding.
Ategnatos is like an overture. It introduces the atmosphere and the topic of the album, and it heralds what is going to happen.
The song Ategnatos pours on exactly this and reflects and mocks our innermost fear, the fear of dying and letting go.
It's the story of descent, metamorphosis and rebirth.
And it also sees a question of opulence and suffering no one therein, conceiving that it's the poor man who clings tightly on what he's given for fear of losing it, while it's the content man of wealth who spends his riches freely.
This structure is present in every single book, movie and narrative that we find fascinating. It's the story of every mythology, religion and every single human being. Every time when something bad happens to us and we don't know what to do and we go to the dark place, this is chaos, this is the descent. Then we have to adjust ourselves to overcome the struggle and be reborn. It's a mythological cycle in everyday life, and it's an idea that is very close to my heart.
Everything has its origin in darkness. The day arises from the night, and the unborn baby receives its life in the dark of mother's womb. The grain must fall into the soil and break in its darkness first before it sprouts and becomes a precious plant, and the grub first must die in the dark of its cocoon before it spreads the wings of a butterfly. He who has to hear, let him hear.
We wrote Ategnatos midway through the session for the new record, and I think it turned out to be the quintessential track on the album, so to say, in a sense that it combines all the typical elements for a classic Eluveitie song.
In a nutshell, Ategnatos is about life offering us a chance to grow. And in Celtic understanding, growth and renewal and rebirth roots in death and dying. Metamorphosis or recurring or even sometimes repetitive transformation is a topic to be found over and over again in Celtic mythology. Allegorically portrayed as actual shapeshifting. Interesting here is the fact that the metamorphoses usually occur during situations or times of distress or persecution, actually representing an escape, a rescue or a solution. Deathwalker lyrically follows the tradition of mythic narratives as we find them in later medieval Welsh bardic poetry, yet it focuses on the mortal remains, so to speak, and how things once vital and precious to us pale into blatant insignificance after being shed during the metamorphosis.
I think it's one of the most modern sounding songs on the album, and I really like the epicness, the epic feel of the song.
Yeah, the song comes with a very groovy and driving instrumental part in the middle. It's based on a traditional Irish reel called the Fairmoy Lasses, and well, I remember recording it. It was pretty challenging. Playing it, that reel itself, it's quite comfortable, but in Deathwalker we just played really fucking fast.
The most challenging part on Deathwalker, singing-wise, was to find a good chorus melody.
It even outstrips the solo I play in King, which makes it the most raving and lightning folk tune we've ever played.
Blackwater Dawn again is a song to center around the topic of the other world and the Celtic image of dying, death and what lies beyond. or more precisely, it's centering about the other world and the journey there. I like earlier songs of ours, such as The Raven, Ategnatos and others. It's based on the Celtic conception of dying being a journey, usually across a sea.
This song was one of the most challenging songs for me on this album. Yeah, I remember when I was in the studio and recording the chorus, it just didn't work out somehow, and I really had to give it a break, and I went out to catch some air, and yeah, I went back and somehow it worked out. I'm pretty happy now, especially with one note. It was so challenging to sing it, but in the end we made it work, so yeah, I'm happy with this song.
The first traces of that song go way back to a tour in Russia we did last year.
A Cry in the Wilderness is a rather old schoolish Eluveitie song, I would say, much in the vein of tracks such as Your Gaulish War.
I think it turned out to be a quite old schoolish Eluveitie song in a way that for me it has that kind of Slania vibe, especially the chorus.
Lyric-wise, regarding the wording and the lyric poetry, it's ridiculously plain and unelaborate and kind of obvious. The actual magic lies in what it says. Every single line of its lyrics carries thoughts shelves of books could be written about. And yeah, let's not get into detail here. I'd rather say, may the voices of Ategnatos speak for themselves.